Again denied the suggestion that
starting the second movie. Warbles on a lot to YouTube, talking about police and tasers and Roberto Niley or something, Argentinan, who was killed on St Patrick's Day. This is ABC Radio National Background Briefing. 8:30 in the morning, Sunday the 4th of November.
Early in the morning, you never said, don't taser.
At this point, State Coroner Mary Jerram interrupted what had become a confusing and difficult to follow exchange, and seeking to bring some clarity to the evidence about whether or not Inspector Cooper had said, don't taser, she came up with this direct question.
I think it's now being put to you that at the time, that is in the midst of the melee, if you like, which ended with Roberto dead, that in fact you didn't say those words. That's what's being put.
Thank you, Your Honour. I can agree with that, yes. It may not have been said.
Inspector Cooper then changed his testimony under re-examination by his own barrister, and he again said that he'd told his officers not to use their tasers.
So he told them, he didn't tell them, and then he told them.
Inspector Cooper changed his evidence on this point 3 times. Counsel Assisting Jeremy Gormley SC would later single out Inspector Cooper for severe criticism. Gormley said his evidence ought to be rejected, and he went even further, saying that Inspector Cooper had never told officers not to use their tasers. Gormley said Inspector Cooper had allowed to occur what occurred.
Absolutely, he was there, it happened.
Inspector Cooper was in no mood to talk.
Inspector Cooper, did you tell the truth to the inquiry today? To the inquest? Did you ever hear you say?
Stop popping everybody.
Did you tell the truth to the coronial inquest today, Inspector Cooper? You have nothing to say?
In his final address to the coroner, Counsel Assisting Jeremy Gormley SC said he would be recommending the coroner make a finding that Roberto's death was misadventure with precise cause undetermined by members of the New South Wales Police Force. But the emergency specialist, Dr. John Vinan, was unequivocal in his assessment of the cause of death. Dr. John Vinan, the former head of emergency at Royal North Shore Hospital, said he was certain that positional asphyxia had killed Roberto.
So he died by being sat on
findings,
by
obviously,
policemen.
which are yet to be handed down. And I think it's important to understand
First
that.
they tortured him and then they sat on him until he was dead.
Was that, based on my report and the questioning in court, was that most likely the cause of death was due to a combination of factors leading up to positional asphyxia, which occurred during the restraint process.
Police and ambulance officers are trained to place people deemed at risk of positional asphyxia in a recovery position, that is, on their side rather than face down. But the police told the coroner they didn't place Roberto into the recovery position because they were concerned he would start resisting again. One officer was checking his pulse and breathing, but he didn't see he was blue in the face until his pulse couldn't be detected and he was turned over. By then, he was blue. Dr. Vinan said he believed that the
Face is blue, brain is too.
Mr. Certi down was likely to have led to a form of asphyxia because it restricted his breathing.
You can't put any weight or pressure on the person's chest or their abdomen or their back if they're lying face down, or indeed their neck, which can happen on occasion, though as far as I can tell that didn't happen here. It's crucial to make sure that there's no weight or pressure on them that's going to compromise their ability to breathe, and I think that's certainly what happened in this case.
In evidence, the police said Roberto Certi displayed great strength, and that's why so many of them were needed to restrain him. But Dr. Vinan said that the psychosis would have provided Roberto with a lot more energy, but that in the end, he was simply fighting for his life.
I think the general issue was he was fearful, and again, I don't want to preempt the coroner's findings, but it appeared he had developed an acute psychosis and then progressed on to what's called agitation.
He was scared. A bunch of strangers were trying to kill him.
Fearful for their welfare. He expressed that fear to the shopkeeper.
They killed him for his own good, to stop him from struggling.
They're fearful for their welfare. They'll resist any attempt to hold them down and stop them or restrain them. And that's what
Britannia,
appeared to happen in this case.
marmalade
He was
and
a man
jam.
who was quite
5
slight. He was
Chinese crackers up your
67
asshole. Bang,
kilos.
bang, bang, bang,
And
bang.
Officers in their evidence described his strength as almost being superhuman. Is that possible?
No, well, I mean, superhuman is,
No.
is not really the correct term. I mean, they basically have strength more than what you'd expect. This is because they don't have the same degree of pain level as people who aren't psychotic, so they can actually sort of tolerate a lot of
Use
pain
all of
in
their
trying
strength
to
instead of saving
overcome the restraint. And also, they are very strong because they are often fearful for their lives and they're fighting for their life. And that's why people sometimes use the term superhuman strength.
Emergency specialist
When you're
Dr.
full of
John
adrenaline,
Vinan.
be surprised how strong you
A
are.
week after the inquest finished, the New South Wales Ombudsman released his second report in 4 years
Yeah,
into the
he released it
police use of
early so he
tasers in
didn't
New
have to
South
include
Wales.
this coroner's report.
It did not deal with the Roberto Certi tasering. That
Roberto
will be the
Certi.
subject of another report from the Ombudsman. This report examined police use of tasers in a 6-month period in 2010. And at a press conference welcoming the release of the report, New South Wales Police Minister Mike Gallagher said it gave confidence to police.
It is appropriate to thank the Ombudsman for the work that he has done by giving that confidence to police, but also giving that confidence
Completely
to the public
misrepresents
in
the
terms
report.
of the utilisation of this equipment.
Standing beside the minister was Police Commissioner Andrew Skippy-One.
Skippy-One. Fuck, I
Thank
hate
you,
this
Minister.
guy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can I start by saying that it's important I get this on the record? I understand that
This
there is an
prick
enormous
stood in
amount
a
of interest
church
in the use of
and said,
tasers,
"My
as rightly there should be.
second
The
cousin's
interest
son
had been fueled by
didn't
the blatant
lose his
media
life.
coverage of the
He
Certi
gave it
inquest.
when he was
But the
shot in
police
the back of the
commissioner
head
would
by
not
his
be answering questions
commanding officer
about
on an
that.
I'm
alleged
also
drug
mindful
raid.
that we are at the moment awaiting a determination by a coroner in the matter involving Mr. Certi. I won't be drawn in that regard. It would be not appropriate for me to do that. I need to respect the coroner's jurisdiction. It's the subject of an ongoing coronial inquest, and as such, I would ask that you would respect that responsibility.
This
The
guy
police
lives in
commissioner
propaganda
was pleased
fairyland.
with the Ombudsman's report.
Andrew
Of the 600
Skippy-One.
uses of taser that were reviewed, there were
Skippy-One,
only a
I
few
call him.
occasions where the
That's how his
police
name's
had got it
spelled.
wrong.
But I'm heartened by the report because even the Ombudsman says there are relatively small numbers of issues that arise from compliance. Now, they're his words, not mine, contained in the document. But again, one issue of non-compliance is one too many, isn't it? It's got to be. So we have to continue to work with the Ombudsman and with other oversight agencies to improve our
One
performance
issue of
in this area.
non-compliance.
Let me assure you, the last thing I want to do is have to deal with an officer because they have not complied with a procedure or with their training manuals.
The Commissioner said misuse of tasers would not be tolerated, and in response to a reporter's question about 2 police who were caught on camera aiming tasers at each other's groin and then accidentally shooting one of them in the leg and the arm, Commissioner Skippy-One said there was no room for this kind of thing.
Let me just talk about misuse of a device. At the end of the day, there's no room for skylarking. If that person or the people involved in that would have immediately been de-accredited. They would not be in a position to carry a taser from the time
Good,
that
still
matter
recording.
was determined. So how do we respond? Immediately we say, you're not going to have one of those devices. And secondly, we would deal with that as we would any other disciplinary issue. There is no room in this organisation for people to skylark. Not with a taser, not with a motor vehicle, not with any of the appointments we give them. There is simply no room for that.
He doesn't want people, he wants
Skylarking
automatons.
incident was just one of 27 cases of taser misuse, including drive stuns and repeat tasering, that the New South Wales Ombudsman identified as problematic. But the Ombudsman's real concern was not so much the serious misuses of taser that he identified, but that in the majority of these, the police did not agree with his assessment. In fact, police reviews had already cleared the majority of these officers of any wrongdoing.
They always
New
do.
South Wales Ombudsman Bruce Barber.
Police
In a couple
investigate
of
police and
cases
find
that
there's
we
no
looked at
problem.
Closely,
That's why they're police.
number of uses of the taser hadn't even been properly identified or recorded in the police documentation or by the review panel. Now, clearly, if a taser has been fired multiple times, there is no way there can be a proper assessment about whether that has been a reasonable process unless you know exactly and you've kept details of how many times the taser has been used.
In one case that later went before the court, a magistrate found that the use of taser was unlawful because unnecessary and excessive force had been used. But in later correspondence with the Ombudsman, the police argued that even though the court had found it was unlawful, it was still consistent with police standard operating procedures. New South Wales Ombudsman Bruce Barber says the police are not above the law.
Clearly, the operating procedures cannot subvert
They think anything
the law.
they order
You
is
cannot
law.
have a
Anything they
situation
do has to be
where
lawful
something
because
can
they
be
are
consistent
law
with
officers.
operating procedures, but can
It's
be
a
at the same
complete
time
short
unlawful.
circuit of every
The
principle
dilemma
of
that we
jurisprudence.
had with the police in that matter,
And it's been progressively
was
caused
that they persistently held the view
by
that the police
media
officer in that matter had acted consistent with
and the
operating
entertainment
procedures,
industry,
notwithstanding the findings of the magistrate.
romanticising law enforcement,
Recommendations go to fixing up this internal
glorifying
police review process.
anything done by
The
police.
reasoning is that if misuses of taser are not dealt with by disciplinary action if necessary, they
It's
risk
okay.
being
If you're
repeated.
innocent, you've got
If
nothing
the
to fear.
taser review panels don't operate effectively and quickly,